A Hairy Problem by Blue Bastard. Chapter 17. Honesty. I'm coming, called out Sandalwood, dressed in a bathrobe as a result of just coming out of the shower. Due to the time of day, it was probably dripping with the day's mail. Instead, it was a very distraught Applejack, apparently trotting in place out of nervousness. Applejack, asked Sandalwood, what are you? The tan pony suddenly found herself pushed into the flat as Applejack hurriedly intruded and then shut the door. Considering Sandalwood knew Applejack's secret, it was rather obvious when it happened. All right, Fleabag. Who? What? When? About an hour ago, in front of Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, and Rarity, while saving Rarity's house from being destroyed by Severus. Wait, Severus was attacking her house? Why? Sandalwood made a mental note to not take 2-hour showers anymore. Apparently all the interesting stuff in town happened when she was busy singing her favorite song by the flying lotus blossoms under the shower head. It's a long story, but right now I'll need your help, yours and Lyra's. The aromatherapist narrowed her eyes. Applejack, don't tell me you bit someone. Thankfully, Applejack immediately sprung into defense. What? No! It's just that I don't know if I can ever face my friends again. After what I did. AJ, sit down. I think you need to tell me everything that's happened. And so Applejack proceeded to tell Sandalwood the events an hour earlier, briefly letting Rarity, Pinkie, and Rainbow Dash see her as a wolf. She'd taken the bones that Severus had been obsessing over for some reason, and led the beast deep into the Everfree. There, she ditched the bones, and had so succeeded in luring the three-headed beast away from Rarity's home. However, due to extreme worries about what her friends would think about the recent development that their friend had been accosting Lightningsville for months, and the fact that both Fluttershy and Twilight still didn't know anything about this, Applejack was scared of whatever action she did next of being the wrong one. So, she pretty much just waited for 45 minutes in the forest before going the long way around town, seeking refuge at the flat Lyra and Sandalwood shared. They being the only ones who wouldn't freak out at the idea of Applejack being a werewolf. Sandalwood couldn't help but give Applejack the most "Are you serious?" look she could master. Applejack, I know you told me and Lyra about your issues, but you shouldn't be running to us. We're not talking about any group of ponies here. These are the ponies who have stood beside you against some of the greatest threats in recent history. Heck, after Twilight figured out how to restore all of you after Discord refers to your personalities, weren't you the first one she turned back to normal? Yeah. Sandalwood got out from her sitting position and walked over to Applejack, putting a hoof on the distraught apple farmer's shoulder. Look, you've proved that even when in your other form, you're still fully the pony you were inside. Why should something as trivial as what amounts to a functional costume change alter how they see you if everything else about you stays the same? I just told you what already happened! Right in front of Pinkie, Rainbow, and Rarity. Rarity, well, her reaction doesn't count for obvious reasons. But both Rainbow and Pinkie aren't the kind of ponies who get easily scared. With that in mind, now how amazing what kind of fear they had as they grappled onto each other for dear life when I not only took like 5 seconds to simply make my coat look unshorn and make my hose look funny. To illustrate the point, Applejack held up a hoof. Although she hadn't intended to, her subconscious made just the lower part of her forelegs shift into its more vulpine form. This freaked out both Sandalwood and AJ, the former because she hadn't expected it to happen, and the latter because she didn't know how partial limb morphing was even possible. Quickly wheeling her forehoof back to normal, she apologized to Sandalwood. Nervously waving it off, the tan pony did her best to not start going into hysterics. That was the last thing the situation needed. Especially since the already distraught pony was the significantly more dangerous one, whether she meant harm or not. Well, clearly you might need some more help with controlling this. Help that we can't really give you. Lyra and I can try our best, but you have to agree that now some of your friends know about this, it's time to come clean. I don't know. It's just that I don't know even how to bring out the subject. Before today, there was something in me, some kind of feeling that helped me keep a secret. But now, it ain't that much of a secret to them that I end up simply lying, and Celestia knows I'm not the element of lying. It was just then Lyra came in, bag of precious goods in her massive grip. Hey, I didn't know Applejack was. One look at the expressions, combined with the overall tone of the atmosphere, told the mint unicorn all she needed to know. Setting the bag down, Lyra sighed. This better not involve the entire dog population of Ponyville again. It doesn't, but you and I need to have a talk, said Sandalwood before turning to Applejack. Just stay here, all right? And, don't do anything You expect an unhousebroken dog to do? Calmly finished Applejack. I know, you're trying to phrase it in nicer terms, but I've never been one for constantly trying to sidestep around something. Don't worry, I'm not going to carve up the sofa or anything. As he said, I'm still a pony regardless of what I look like, right? Right, replied Sandalwood, somewhat relieved she didn't need to be so blunt with Applejack. Motioning Lyra to follow, Sandalwood went upstairs to her mostly empty bedroom. Lyra came in as well, closing the door behind her. All right, Sandy, what's going on? Well, the resident werewolf has managed to botch revealing her secret to the ponies that matter in the worst way possible, although in her defense, it wasn't exactly situational. The Earth Pony then proceeded to explain the situation to the unicorn. Lyra, for her part, thought the fact that Applejack had managed to avert disaster in more ways than one was enough to make the situation actually seem favorable. But the status of Twilight and Fluttershy complicated the matter. Yeah, the absence of Fluttershy and Twilight. Had the whole contingent been there, Applejack certainly wouldn't be as skittish about talking to her friends about the werewolf thing, commented Lyra. But without the raw reactions from most of them, just having Twilight's response is going to lead to a whole bunch of research that probably would be uncomfortable to the poor girl. What about Fluttershy? What about her? We both know she's going to pass out the moment Applejack starts sprouting pointing bits from her hooves. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Remember, this is the same Fluttershy that worked up a nerve to stare a grumpy, smog-breathing dragon in the eye after he knocked her friends back. Then, later, stare a cockatrice into submission while it was turning her into stone because it had done so to Twilight earlier. She may be timid, but Fluttershy may be the ticket to helping Applejack the most that could be done. After all, Fluttershy is skilled in working with animals most ponies like us would be scared to be even near. Lyra nodded in agreement. I see what you mean. But that still leaves the question of how we're going to set them all up so Applejack can make peace with her friends, knowing about her condition, so to speak. Her family, too. There's no way she can keep living with Granny Smith, Big Mac, and Applebloom like this. We'll need to get them all in the same place. Probably Golden Oaks, since it's sufficiently large enough, suggested Sandalwood. I think I know how to get them all together in one place. Bon still owes me a favor or two back when she was residing here. Let's go to talk to AJ so she's on board with this. But if we're lucky, we can get this settled before the night is done. Thanks for coming with me, Fluttershy, said an exhausted Twilight Sparkle to her Pegasus companion. I'm not so sure I could have done this and handled that Ursa without you. Indeed, the situation in Philadelphia had been near disastrous. Twilight's attempt to calm the angered Space Bear in a similar manner to how she'd done it before failed miserably. But Fluttershy had managed to sway the young beast with her soothing, "Hush now, quiet now," lullaby. By the time the mother bear, the even more fearsome Ursa Major, arrived, she found her child sleeping soundly in the forest, a fair distance away from Philly, without having done any damage. Of course, the baby Space Bear had been considerably much older than the one who attacked Ponyville, this one having been close to maturing into an Ursa Major, so it had taken a lot of Twilight's magic to move the heavier bear without reawakening it and repeating the whole process.
Oh, it was nothing. I was just glad I was able to help,
replied Fluttershy. Fluttershy, you really need to put more stock in your abilities. Sure, most of the time you're tending after your small animals, but your ability to handle the large and scary fauna of Equestria is no small thing. Heck, just take this incident in Philadelphia. You didn't even need to stare to calm it down.
Yeah, I guess you're...
started Fluttershy, before the door to the train car opened, scanning her and sending her into the ceiling as her wings involuntarily lost their love words. Ponyville in 10 minutes! Called out the conductor, making his way through the train car to the other side. Once he left through the opposite door, Fluttershy fell onto the ground from her perch high above. Twilight couldn't help but chuckle, an accident that would have humiliated Fluttershy had she not been a close friend. Instead, Fluttershy found herself joining in the laughter, knowing that it had been a rather extreme overreaction on her part. Soon, the train hissed to a stop at the Ponyville station, where Twilight and Fluttershy disembarked. Both were tired and more than a bit hungry. They were soon joined by Spike, who elected to stay in the sleeper bunk in return for being the packed mule by carrying the bags of his pony companions. Fortunately for him, since Rarity wasn't one of the ponies who had been on the trip, he didn't have to move Mount Fashionista. At the same time, the Fashionista herself, along with a rainbow-hued tomboy and a moving violation of physics, were visible rushing towards the station.
Oh, hey, here comes the other.
Wait, where's Applejack? Mentioned Twilight, surprised at the lack of the beheaded pony in the welcoming committee.
Oh, Twilight, it's horribly, simply horrible!
Lamented Rarity, skating to a stop in front of Twilight and Fluttershy, clearly distraught over something.
Yeah, Applejack is a...
Started Pinky as he slowed to a stop, before Rainbow Dash quickly darted in front of her and shoved a hoof into the energetic pony's mouth.
What about Applejack?
Asked Fluttershy, nerves starting to panic again, despite not even knowing what's going on.
Look, it's better if we handle this, privately, as it were,
replied Rarity, suddenly taking on a spiritual tone.
Trust me, it would be disaster for every pony if they learned the truth.
Truth about what? Cried Twilight, who had no time to react before Rarity took her by the hoof and began dragging her into town. Fluttershy and Spike exchanged glances before proceeding to follow, Rainbow and Pinky in tow. Twilight, for her trouble, didn't get an answer until all of the ponies, plus Dragon, were inside the security of Golden Oaks.
I'm sorry, Twilight dear, but it's imperative that you know about Applejack, so you don't have to go through the same trials that Rainbow, Pinky, and I had to earlier.
The Unicorn, Pegasus, and Earth Pony then launched into a retelling of the day's events since Twilight, Fluttershy, and Spike had left for Philly. Or rather, it was mostly Rarity, who rambled on about how, after sending her sister off to learn from the halls of knowledge, Pinky arrived with her gifts of time and space warping such that she could get into the fabric warehouse on time. However, due to the implied actions of a most heinous and deplorable jackass, no offense, none taken, she and Pinky ended up luring a rampaging Cerberus to Carousel Boutique by a complete accident. While the monster began to destroy the poor residents, Pinky went off to enlist the aid of Rainbow Dash and Applejack. But it was then, when the chips were down and the carousel seemingly lost, did Applejack reveal her monstrous secret.
Our dear Applejack, she transformed before our very eyes into a werewolf!
Cried Rarity, rearing up on her hind legs before falling back to dramatic effect. Susie she made it into a kind of alarmed performance due to her supposed need of fainting multiple times rapidly.
A werewolf?
Answered back Fluttershy, now hiding behind her massive pink mane. Twilight opened to speak, having been skeptical of the whole thing, but Pinky raised her hoof.
Twilight, we were all there. I know I'm not usually the voice of reason in any situation, but I'm being dead serious in that I saw Applejack do something no pony should be able to do. I know the physical limitations of our ponies, especially the ones I break on a regular basis that neither you or I can explain, but even I can't somehow make my fur grow longer, turn my hose into paws with sharp bits at the end, or develop a wet dog into the nose at the end of my muzzle at the drop of the hat, all of those of which Applejack did do!
Twilight's mouth remained open, although now more out of complete shock at Pinky being gravely serious about the mare than contesting the truthfulness of Applejack being a paranormal creature of legend. Either this was Pinky's greatest acting job, and it was all a setup for Applejack in a costume that scared the living daylights out of her, or Applejack actually was no longer fully a pony. Okay, since you guys are so sure, I guess I have to believe that Applejack's been lying to us this whole time. But there had to have been signs that she was hiding the truth she was a werewolf, deduced Twilight. Surprisingly, it was Fluttershy who pointed out the obvious which every pony had overlooked.
Well, she has been having some strange events happening to her.
The beauty! Exclaimed Rarity, finally putting two and two together.
Girls, think about it. The incident that Applejack had because she was somehow eating a burger, it honestly sort of bugged me how she rationalized it with her being under the influence of the monthly inconvenience. But if she actually was secretly some sort of carnivorous animal,
she shuddered the thought. Rainbow was next to fit more of the puzzle together. What about that whole deal with every dog chasing her through town?
But someone told me that was because Applejack was coated in some kind of new perfume concoction gone wrong,
interjected Rarity.
How do we know Sandalwood isn't on a secret?
Answered Fluttershy.
That, aroma bomb scent that Rainbow and I can detect? along with those poor dogs, told me that the scent they had been following had to have been given off by a female dog in heat. Except they were chasing Applejack.
Under shot town number 50, it was being used to cover the, you know, that Applejack was giving off, but why? Asked Rarity. Still, Constable was saying that Applejack's body was doing inquine things. Because when Applejack said she was having a particularly bad time of the month, as for an explanation for what was going on, realized Twilight, she was actually lying through her teeth. The pheromones needed to attract the dogs could only be given off if the females in heat. And the chateau number 50, if applied heavily enough, would drown out the smell.
But that doesn't make any sense, shouted Pinkie. Applejack is our friend, not to mention the very embodiment of the element of honesty. Why would she lie to us about something this big, yet somebody so relatively new to town nearly knows about it? Unless this is some sort of big old werewolf conspiracy!
Just then, there was a knock at the door. Every pony froze inside the library, save Twilight, who slowly, carefully walked over to the door and opened it and cracked. Hello? She asked the pony behind the barrier.
Ah, good, you're back,
replied Sandalwood.
Look, I know this might be a bad time, but I must.
She never got the chance to finish as Pinkie dashed over to the door, yanked Sandalwood through, slammed the door, and then suddenly slammed a startled rubber expert on the ground.
Quit on to you, Sandalwood!
Cried an irate Pinkie.
We know about the conspiracy you werewolves are planning! Wait, what?
Sandalwood retorted.
Why the hell would you think of a werewolf?
Because why else would you know about Applejack being a werewolf if we did, unless you yourself were one?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
One by one, the main six, minus Applejack, confronted the still pinned down Sandalwood with the evidence, along with the 3 of the 5 pointing out the pseudo-confession Applejack had made by transforming in front of them.
Oh, I see. Look, if you let me up, I can explain,
answered Sandalwood, somewhat relieved that the hard part of telling the favorite student of Princess Celestia that one of her friends was a mystical monster known for violent attacks on ponies. With a nod for Twilight, Pinkie let Sandalwood get up. Dusting herself off, Sandalwood explained her position. Okay, I admit, I've been helping Applejack hide her secret, but she only confided in me after the incident involving the dogs. I had no idea about the whole thing beforehand. But why did she tell you, a relative newcomer to town that she never really met before, and not any of us?
No offense,
asked Rainbow, quickly apologizing.
None taken. As for why she revealed her secret to me, I kind of forced her to explain, since having to save her plot from a mob of dogs was the only most recent event that I figured had to be related to something wrong ever since she, got bitten in the forest. That's why she was, so physical with you at the spa, wasn't it?
Asked Rarity. She and every pony else started to question how well they'd ever known Applejack.
But, wait, if you're living with Lyra at the moment, she knows as well, doesn't she?
Sandalwood sighed. Yeah, Applejack told, or rather showed, us both at the same time, immediately after we saved her from the dogs with the car we'd been building. At the mention of the word car, it was like Sandalwood had just let out a bad fart, judging from the reactions of the assembled crew.
You saved her with what?
Shouted Twilight. I thought that thing was both still busted and rotting away in one of the Apple family barns! As far as I know, that car is. But Lyra and I are 3 fillies who don't really understand what we're doing. Our car is actually operable, and not just a float engine mounted on an old car chassis. But we're getting off topic here, especially since me, as you all probably figured, I'm here because of the events that occurred at Carousel Boutique. I'll answer your concerns right now. Applejack is concerned, okay, but she's kind of shaken up because, she thinks all of you will think she's a monster and not be her friends anymore. You can't be serious, argued Rainbow. She can't honestly think that just because she's got some kind of hairy problem going on, roll credits, that her closest friends would just up and leave her. Deep down, I'm sure she knows that, replied Twilight. But considering she outright lied to not only us, but also the princesses. The newcomer's eyes went wide open as he realized that whole deal with checking the elements from a few back might have been a cover story for what the princesses had been really up to. Her thoughts were interrupted by Sandalwood. Okay, before anything else gets said, I'm going to explain what's going to happen. Since you all know Applejack's secret right now, She knows that you know. She wants a chance to try and explain herself to you all. But in order for that to happen, she needs all the ponies she is closest to in one place. Since we're already here at Golden Oaks, this might as well be a good place as any.
Who else is coming?
Asked Pinky, her mind racing to decide whether or not to quickly throw together a coming out party for Applejack. Well, Lyra's going to get the rest of the apples. So once they're here, she'll bring over Applejack, and we can get this all matter sorted. Oh, and Twilight? She said, as she wanted Princess Leslie Luna here too. As I'm sure they'll need to know that one of the elements of harmony also happens to be a werewolf. Spike instinctively whipped out a parchment and a feather pen. Without missing a beat, Twilight immediately began dictating a letter she'd rather not have sent to royalty. But when Spike was done, she nodded, and watched as the scroll disappeared in dragon flame. Even though now every pony in Golden Oaks knew Applejack's secret, all that had done was raise more questions than answer them, and raise the concerns of 5 specific ponies as to how changed Applejack would be in their eyes now that they knew the truth.
Now, what in tarnation was that?
Shouted Gray to Smith to Apple Bloom.
Oh, I think that it was some pony driving a car, Granny.
Young Philly called back. A minute later, there had been a knock at the door, to which Apple Bloom had gone to open. With that, she found a nicely crafted sleeping basket with a note attached to the Apple family on top. In the distance, the roar of an engine could be heard while a faintly box-shaped cars on wheels drove away.
Apple Bloom, I hope you didn't mean some pony somehow fixed up that machine and you and your friends crashed into the Everfree and just stole it,
called back Granny. The ball-wearing youngster tried to respond, but she was carrying the gift basket in her mouth and came out in a series of mumbles. She placed the basket on the table in the living room, saying,
whoever it was, like left this nice big basket full of sweets for the family. I wonder who could leave such a big thing for us.
Just then, Big Mac came in, already informed of the situation as he heard from the other room. While Granny and Apple Bloom went into looking at all the delicious goodies inside the basket, Big Mac figured this kind act had to be covering up something. Picking up the discarded envelope, he opened it up to find a note inside.
Dear Apple family, please be at Golden Oaks Library tonight at 6 p.m. There's a matter concerning Applejack that she really wishes to discuss, only to know she knows best. P.S. Don't worry about Applejack's whereabouts. She'll be at the library by 6.
Normally, Big Mac was just quiet, but upon reading the note, the blood visibly drained from his face, and he stopped breathing. This was bad. All this time, his suspicions of Applejack possibly becoming a monster like their parents had been slowly slipping away, giving him more peace of mind. But this?
Big Mike, are you all right?
Asked Apple Bloom, both her and Granny now looking concerned toward the noticeably paler work stallion. Saying nothing, he slowly handed the new note to Granny. As he read the note, Apple Bloom bouncing up and down to try and look at it, Granny's face also lost some of its color.
Oh, my,
muttered Granny. Flashbacks of the night of Apple Bloom's play coming into mind, or rather, just images of Applejack's bedroom without an Applejack.
What is it? What is it?
The yellow filly asked over and over, curiously blinding her to the otherwise obvious negative impact that the note was having on her family.
Bloomy,
said Big Mac.
It's an invitation to one of Pinky's parties. Probably for Sandalwood's birthday.
It's Sandalwood's birthday?
Exclaimed Apple Bloom.
Well, no, not today specifically. But since she's going home to celebrate it with her immediate family, Pinky has decided to throw her a birthday party today. Why don't you all get upstairs and get ready?
Okay,
beamed the filly as he raced upstairs, oblivious to the lies. Meanwhile, for the 2 ponies in the know about the situation, Granny gave an approving nod to Big Mac.
I know it's hard to be lying to the poor young thing and all, but you were right. Applejack's,
Balled up emotions started to bubble up, and tears began to well up in the old mare's eyes. This could not be happening to her again. She lost 2 rays of light already. She wasn't sure a third one going the same way as her parents could be survivable this time. Reacting immediately, Big Mac rushed to comfort his grandmother, being strong when no pony else could.
Granny, I hope it ain't really is what we think it is. Or worse, for some same reasons. All we can hope for is that Maven was still strong as she's really. I don't know. Coming out as a mayor lover?
Suggested Big Mac, assuming the biggest, most fake-looking grin he could. Granny could have slapped Big Mac right then and there, but through force of will she did not.
You really think I believe that? Do you think you can believe that?
Big Mac's grin immediately faded into defeat. In all honesty, he knew his successes were crap the second it left his mouth. But as the two waited for Apple Bloom to return, so the trio could head to Golden Oaks, only the filly would be concerned with matters other than if the middle apple child was lost to what seemed to be a family curse. Meanwhile, at Golden Oaks, the royal delegation had arrived, and had been informed about the nature of the meeting. Celestia was thankful that Golden Oaks had 2 floors, for she currently occupied the second and was pacing the perimeter like mad. As the older princess, she was effectively the face of the country of Equestria. It simply would not do for the populace to see their great demigod ruler reduced to something barely above a nervous wreck.
Sunny, please calm down,
pleaded Luna, the only other occupant of the room.
I am sure the matter isn't as bad as you would think. Applejack is still a strong-willed pony. The fact that she's done her best to keep the secret by not giving it to whatever it is going through her head is testament to that alone.
Lulu, I wish I could believe you.
But this is Sable Loam's doing we're talking about,
retorted Celestia, certain she was about to have a nervous breakdown.
And,
interrupted Luna,
as much as I dislike making this comparison, but you're acting no better than a school filly being horribly teased by the schoolyard bully. Think about it. If you're having this reaction to just one of your subjects being turned into a werewolf, what will you do if he steps up the attacks? He's practically won his war against you already.
That got Celestia to calm down.
You're right, Luna. I shouldn't be letting this get to me like that. In truth, I guess it's fortunate that if one of my loyal subjects had been turned into a werewolf, it was one of the elements. No doubt going through such an experience will require strong friendship to pull through, to which there is none greater than that shared by the elements.
A third presence cleared her throat, to which the 2 elements looked over to find Twilight Sparkle waiting to get their attention. Ah, the third Alucard! I'm sorry.
Princess, the apples arrived, just so you know, but I don't think they know about Applejack's issue.
A smile came to Celestia's face.
Twilight's presence had always had that kind of effect on her.
Maybe it had something to do with what was in store for the young mare, and how innocent she still was.
Thank you, Twilight. I will be down them to see him momentarily.
As Twilight nodded in acknowledgement and descended the stairs, Celestia walked over to a mirror to try and tidy up. However, even for having a magical mane and tail that appeared to be more ethereal than physical, it had lost some of its enchantment, and had blended back into reality. Thus, she had a very disheveled look to her mane most ponies wouldn't believe possible. To that, she let out a small laugh. It was very rare that she had the chance to even look like this, but the apples would need the support only the royalty could give, especially since she was truly the only pony alive who had any real experience with werewolves firsthand. After doing some cleanup to look decently presentable, Celestia descended to the main library portion, Luna not far behind. As she made her way down, she could see the gathered ponies all take note of their leader. The main 6 were scattered about the place, trying to look busy, but it was clear that it was just a cover to try not to expose their concerns. The apples, sans Applejack, were making small talk with Sandalwood, simply to try and avoid discussing the reason they were all there. Applebloom, who had figured out it wasn't really a party to celebrate Sandalwood's birthday, was trying to make the best of every pony, not trying to tell her what was going on by playing some checkers with Spike. A quick check of the clock showed the time close to 6 p.m. Almost as if in reaction, the ponies began to stop whatever it was they were doing and look towards either the princesses at the foot of the stairs or the door to the library, awaiting their missing main 6 member.
Well, ponies, Sandalwood said, she'll be here any minute. You all ready for this?
Ready for what? Asked Applebloom.
No pony will tell me what this is all about.
You'll find out soon enough, Applebloom, said Celestia, turning her head to gaze down upon one of her smaller subjects. Finally, the clock chimed to signal the change to 6. Sandalwood then went out the door to wait outside Golden Oaks. As was the usual procedure, there were 2 Royal Guards ponies flanking the exterior entrance, but having been instructed to let Sandalwood do as she needed to do, they paid her no heed. Princesses also went back upstairs to carry out their duties of lowering the sun and raising the moon on the upper library's upper balcony, but also to watch over the arrival of the dubious guest of honor. Soon, two figures emerged from the growing shadows. Their bright fur coats seemed to light up in casting what little of the sun's light remained, revealing the forms of Lyra and a very nervous Applejack. Slowly, they made their way to Sandalwood in front of the treehouse. "You ready for this, Applejack?" asked Lyra, concern on her face. "I got a feeling in my gut the smartest thing to do here is to run off and hide. But this has gone on long enough. My friends, my family, they need to know. I just hope they'll still see me the same way afterwards." "I'm sure they will. Now, come on, let's get this over with," said Sandalwood, opening the door to let the unicorn and apple farmer in. Applejack's gut feeling that this was a huge mistake only intensified exponentially the moment she stepped into the library, as every pony who knew her well was there, and now looking straight at her. Howdy, every pony," greeted Applejack half-heartedly, shrinking back and not even trying to hide her violently shaking legs. It was taking all she had to not just break the door down and run away from Ponyville out of shame. But she'd technically done that before, since destroying Twilight Sparkle's front door, and it hadn't worked out. This time, instead of the shame from not winning blue medals, she had a semi-controllable wild side that could land her into even bigger trouble, the kind that some ponies would never forgive. Sandalwood then came in, locking the door behind her before nodding to Lyra. Lyra nodded back before saying, "Okay, just so we're all clear, who here has a pretty good idea of why they're all gathered in this place?" Almost every pony raised a hoof, including the princesses, who had since come back downstairs. The only hoofs not raised were those belonging to the Apple family. Applejack sighed. Even with the majority of the gathered ponies knowing the truth, or at least informed of it, was still going to be difficult to do what she had to in front of her family. Lyra just turned her head to look at Applejack, implying it was now or never. Applejack nodded in acknowledgement before taking some deep breaths. This was it. "Alright. I'm sure that you all noticed the strange things going on with or around me over the past few months." Out of the corner of her sight, AJ noticed Rainbow rolling her eyes. But the situation had made AJ not really care about what her friends did, as long as they still shared that friendship with her. And then there was a whole deal with the elements where I said the reason for all of that was because of, you know. Well, that ain't the truth. Not all of it, anyway. In reality, all those things that have been happening to me is because,
You're a minor lover?
interrupted Apple Bloom, causing the room to go dead as all the attention went to her.
What? I heard that's what these coming out moments are like. Since no pony would tell me what was going on, I figured since.
To everybody's surprise, Applejack chuckled. "I wish it were that simple, Slice. But no, I'm so sorry about having y'all in the dark about this. Just please forgive me if y'all can, although I won't blame you if you can't." With that, she decided it was once again better to show than tell. And so, right in front of every pony, she risked the most important things in her life, the relationship between her and her family and her friends. All in the name of being honest to both them and herself at last. Once again, although the transformation only took seconds, it was like an eternity passed for those who hadn't previously seen a werewolf go through the process. Twilight shot back like a rocket into one of the bookshelves, sending a tidal wave of books crashing on top of her. Fluttershy, oddly enough, didn't backpedal as hard in reaction, but her wings immediately flared in shock. But it was the reaction of the apples and the alicorns that were most surprising. Granny, Big Mac, and Celestia initially jumped when the transformation began, but otherwise were static, with sad looks on their faces. They had been through this before, so sadness was the only real reaction they had to learning some pony close to them would suffer the fate of those before her. Luna, on the other hand, seemed legitimately curious as Twilight Sparkle level, while Apple Bloom's eyes widened and her jaw dropped. Applejack transformed, opened her eyes to find all attention directed back at her. No pony said anything for what felt like forever. The secret was finally out, having seen with their own eyes. It was taking them all a while to fully process it. Yet, it was Apple Bloom, who, by all right, should have been running for the hills after seeing her sister willingly turned into an unnatural cross between pony and canine, that spoke first.
Silas, is that you?
Yeah, Bloomy, it's still me, replied Applejack in her slightly huskier werewolf voice. To the shock of both her and every pony else, Apple Bloom then proceeded to walk toward her transformed sister.
Oh, yes. This is because of that creature who attacked you in the Everfree, isn't it?
Said Apple Bloom.
No, this is because of me, isn't it? If I hadn't got Scooter Sweeney to help me build that stupid car, only to wreck it in there, you wouldn't have been needed to go after it. You would have been beaten. Then you wouldn't have had to go through all this trouble because you're a werewolf now.
Applejack was taken aback. Apple Bloom was blaming herself for this whole mess? Apple Bloom, that's not.
It's all my fault!
Cried the filly as she suddenly bolted to embrace the werewolf in a bear hug. Tears began to stream down her face.
It's all my fault.
Now hold on a second, declared Applejack, pulling off Apple Bloom and looking at her face eye to eye. None of this is your fault. You understand that? The fact that I hadn't gone looking for that car was nothing more than a matter of circumstance. You cannot blame yourself for something you did not do. You understand that?
Yeah, but...
replied the filly, sniffling. Whatever it was that turned me into this, it could have attacked me at any time I went into the Everfree. Like going to Socorus, or helping Fluttershy find her chickens. Heck, the fact it was me who got bit was completely unpredictable. It could have been anybody else who had taken me to find that car. But I don't care about that right now. All I need you is to know that you still love me as much as I love you, even now that you know my secret.
Even when you're more hairy than Winona, you're still a silly pony, Applejack,
said Apple Bloom, the humor starting to hold back the tears. I'm a silly pony? If you're playing that song, please stop. You're playing a mock defended AT.
Yeah, because you think there's anything different than my belief sis in any situation?
With that, the sisters embraced. Tears started to well up in Applejack's eyes. The hug soon expanded to include Granny Smith and Big Back, who, while saddened that Applejack had indeed fallen victim to lycanthropy, was still the Applejack they knew on the inside, and to that they held on to her dearly. Eventually, the Apple family hug dispersed, and Applejack turned to face her friends, the rest of the main six, and the elements of harmony. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this sooner, but, started the werewolf, but he was cut off by Twilight's raised hoofs. Whatever your reasons, Applejack, I believe I can speak for all of us in that we trust you weren't planning something bad. Well, it's just that I was worried you all wouldn't want to be my friends anymore, since who want to be friends with a pony who cries that you meet? Big deal, said Rainbow. So you're a carnivore. It's not like you're planning on eating us or any pony we know, right? Besides, the only way you're different like this is that you're fuzzier. Kind of like the time we all got altered by Poison Joke, and Rarity looked like a walking, talking mop. The Pegasus snickered, while Rarity nickered, both having different opinions on what happened to the Fashionistas' fine fur coat during that incident. The rest of the main six made similar comments, washing away all of Applejack's fears of losing those she was closest to because of her altered state. But something still bothered her. Turning to face Princess Celestia, who along with Luna had just been watching the events unfold, Applejack asked, Princess, if you don't mind me asking, what aren't you mentioning? Celestia was surprised. Whatever do you mean, Applejack? Judging from your reaction to me turning into a wolf-like pony, y'all seen this before. Plus, my cutie mark has been fading much like my parents' cutie marks were certainly before they died. I'm thinking no pony told me the full story behind the fate of my parents. Celestia looked like she was going to try and divert the issue, but was cut off by both Granny and Big Mac.
I knew this day was going to come, and not circumstances like this,
said Granny, a forlorn look on her face.
But now that you're a werewolf and all, and Apple Bloom knows most of it, there's not much point in hiding the family secret anymore. Wait, we're all werewolves?
Apple said, well, some of them are vampires. That was a gnome. 5 points if you got that joke! Exclaimed out to Bloom, who proceeded to try and assume her wolf form by puffing out her cheeks and concentrating really hard. It did nothing but make her look extra cute. Wait till the next story, Apple Bloom! Oh, Apple Bloom, trust me when I say you don't want to be like me in this case, said Applejack. The irony is delicious. Slightly amused by the innocence of her sister still had about the whole matter. The first transformation that night, so long ago, had been the worst pain Applejack ever felt, but she wouldn't stand for Apple Bloom to go through the same. But Granny, as you say it, it's time to reveal the truth. If Ma and Pa ended up going for some reason to follow the werewolves, then as one myself, I think I have the right to know.
Considering how close they all are to the family, I guess everybody here has the right to know. However, I'll need you all to promise that what you'll learn here tonight, you'll speak up to no pony who is not currently in this building, with a pinky promise,
requested Grammy, giving Pinky a sly look at the last line. Complying with the request, every pony did the Pinky promise mantra, including the princesses. That image is awesome. Satisfied, Granny began to open up old wounds in the hope that they could finally heal now.
Alright, to finally understand, I'll have to go back to when everything started going south for poor Appleseed and Cornflower.
Princess Celestia slowly walked up to the homestead on Sweet Apple Acres the night after the attack. There were several guard ponies, but not of the regular variety. These ponies were encased with special impenetrable armor that left no part of their body exposed to attack. After what reportedly happened to a pair of ponies, Celestia had the elite guard stationed all over the farm in the event that the perpetrator returned. Normally, a simple attack on a homestead, such as this one, would be handled by the local guard garrison, but if it was the nature of the perpetrator that warranted direct Crown involvement. According to the one reliable witness, an elderly mare by the name of Granny Smith, her son and daughter-in-law had been doing some late-night harvesting in order to make production quotas when, out of the blue, a vicious wolf had come out and horribly maimed them. By the time Granny Smith came out, all she said was she could see a pony-shaped wolf look at her through bloodshot eyes, before taking off forever free, leaving behind a grievously wounded couple. Knowing their leads was wishing to enter, one of the lead guards knocked on the door, where a normal guard on the inside opened it to let Celestia in. As she ascended the stairs, a tight fit due to her height being twice that of a regular earth pony's, even greater if her horn was factored in. At the top, she entered the master bedroom. Inside, she found an assembly of ponies. On the bed lay the victims of the attack, Appleseed and Cornflower. To look at them now would suggest nothing of how bad the wounds had been, but while the doctors said it was a medical miracle, it was only more concerning for the Sun Princess, as it continued to support her worst fears. On one side of the bed stood the chief doctor from Pontville Hospital, Dr. Wishbone, and his recently hired intern nurse, Redheart. On the other side was Granny Smith and her grandchildren, a young colt by the name of Big Mac, an even smaller filly named Applejack. The youngest Apple, a year-old filly named Apple Bloom, currently laid asleep in the forelegs of her mother, Cornflower. Celestia registered some surprise at Apple Bloom. She had not been told of the infant, but she did not appear to be in any serious danger. I didn't know you had a toddler, Cornflower. May I see her? Well, but of course, you're my majesty, replied Cornflower, evidently still weakened from the attack, but happy to be alive and with her family. Apple Bloom did not even stir, though she suddenly began to glow a bright yellow, and levitated to the slightly pink alicorn. Cradled in royal magic, the baby yawned cutely, before shifting in her position to be more comfortable. The princess just smiled as she held a piece of Equestria's future in her telekinesis, but, like all good things, the serene moment had to end and reality face. Now, I have some good news and some bad news, but it is of a private matter that I wish to discuss only with Appleseed, Cornflower, and Granny Smith. I'll have to ask the rest of you to leave for a moment. Complying with their leader's request, the ponies, both big and small, fled out of the room, Dr. Wishbone taking the infant into his own magic, so the princess could fully concentrate on the matter. Once the door had been shut, Granny moved to lock it. Thank you, Granny Smith, said Celestia, prepping for herself what she had to say next. Now, you three will be happy to know that the culprit who viciously attacked you has been identified, and I personally have taken measures to see he will no longer be a threat to you or any pony else. Permanently. However, the nature of your assailant is what brings me to bad news. You see, you two were attacked by who I believe was the last werewolf alive.
Werewolf?
Started Appleseed. Yes. His name was Sable Loam, who had admittedly been a thorn in my side for over 1,000 years, and I am glad to see him go. But I do not wish it had to be at such a high cost, especially since it will be you two paying them for the rest of your lives. What do you mean, Princess? Worriedly asked Cornflower. She trusted her princess to only have the best intentions for any and all of her subjects, so even if Celestia was concerned about something, it was bad. You two are the first, and I hope the last, victims of a werewolf attack in almost a millennia. The fact that you survived such horrific wounds and are recovering so quickly makes me consider that the worst, and that both of you are going to become werewolves yourselves. You mean we're going to become like that thing that did this to us? Murmured Cornflower, starting to shake with fear at the potential of violence she could inflict on any pony, especially her own family and children. Without saying a word, Appleseed reached over and gave a four-legged embrace to his panicking wife, a silent strength that his son Big Mac would mirror years later.
Is there anything we can do to cure ourselves of this curse?
Asked Appleseed, continuing to be strong for his beloved. I am afraid not. In a month's time you will probably experience your first transformation. However, from what I can remember of the original werewolves who returned to Equestria, you will still be in control. Many of those werewolves who eventually tried to return to normal pony life with assistance from the crown did manage to do so successfully. And even though you two may be the only werewolves left, I will not deny you the same support I gave those poor souls centuries ago. Plus, you have the advantage of family, should you choose to share it with them, and something many of werewolves victims didn't have.
So, even though you're saying my son and daughter-in-law will become monsters temporarily, there's still hope for them?
Asked Granny, who was willing to do what it took to ensure her offspring and his mate would fully recover as much as possible. Of course. The original werewolves eventually learned to deal with their lycanthropy as nothing more than a handicap as an obstacle to overcome, and I'm sure you'll be able to treat it the same way. Unfortunately, said Celestia in present, they would only live a few months longer before meeting their untimely end, well before I could mobilize anything to be assistance to them.
I'll let them die,
asked Apple Bloom, who was the only apple child who couldn't remember her own parents' faces.
To be honest, we never did find that out, said Granny sadly. It was a few days before Heartswarming when Appleseed dusted up and walked out of the house into Heaven-Free without wearing any clothing.
Not that they wore any clothes at all.
Not even his special hat.
Applejack reached up and felt her father's hat, which for years after his death had called her own head home.
Your mother, Cornflower, went off to try and see what was the matter,
continued Gray.
Last when the blizzard hit, and as far as anybody knows, they got lost in the storm. A search party was organized the next morning to locate them. Well, they didn't need to go far. The bodies of Appleseed and Cornflower were found close to the edge of Everfree, holding on to each other, but half buried in the snow, covered all over with scratch marks, like they'd been fighting. Unfortunately, they said they had died from Timberwolf ambush. Then, in order to hide the brutal nature of their deaths from you young'uns, Big Mac and I agreed to say they died of pneumonia. Well, the truth is, something in their natures was influenced by them being werewolves, and they possibly came to blows. I'll never do two ponies to have as much true love between them and Appleseed and Cornflower. So whatever happened to them, quantitably natural.
The room again went silent. Applejack's own shocking reveal being dwarfed by the revelation of the demise of the Apple parents also having been werewolf-related, even if it was just a theory. It was Princess Luna who realized it at first. Applejack, although it is regrettable that you did not return in time to have been in any help to prevent the deaths of your parents, you may have better prospects now that the Crystal Empire has returned. That confused Applejack and pretty much every pony here. What does the Crystal Empire have to do with my condition? Celestia clarified. The werewolves were originally a traitorous royal guard unit led by a pony named Sable Loam, an able soldier who had an unfortunate obsession with wolves and hunting. They allied themselves with King Sombra in return for him making them into the first werewolves. Luna continued from there. From then on, until the defeat of Sombra, the werewolves were used as a kind of Gestapo who would slay the crystal ponies in line. I have no doubt that there are records about the werewolves due to them being almost certainly biting some crystal ponies who refused to cooperate. Records Salvar can't have destroyed due to have been locked in ice for 1,000 years, not even reaching the castle when he was finally destroyed not too long ago. Twilight lit up the obvious implication.
So what you're saying is that we need to go up to the Crystal Empire and do research project on werewolves?
Celestia frowned. Yes, but I'm afraid you won't be going, Twilight. As much as I know you'd love to go and see your brother and Princess Cadance, you'll be needed here along with the rest of the elements to provide the support Applejack will need in her current state. However, the same cannot be said of you two, continued the Solar Ruler, as he turned to face Sandalwood and Lyra. I cannot thank you two enough for being active in your support of Applejack, even if you did force the secret out of her. But now, I must ask you to perform another task to help her. Go to the Crystal Empire and do our best Twilight Sparkle in the library during research impersonations to find info on werewolves, replied Sandalwood, grinning as he saw Twilight's annoyed face just off to the side. Well, yes, I trust you'd be willing to do it. I need to talk to Alice, Lois and Aloe, since I've got lots of ponies who booked aromatherapy with sessions with me. No, let me talk to them. I'll just say I'm sending you to go give Princess Cadance some aromatherapy. She could possibly use some, considering how much of a hassle it must be getting to the Crystal Empire back into equestrian jurisdiction. Of course, you'll have to give both Luna and myself aromatherapy in sessions as well, since Rarity says they're quite nice. Wait, you want me to... Oh... Sandalwood tried to comprehend the exact boost her business would get once he would say all three princesses had been customers of hers. She failed and passed out, much to the amusement of every pony else. Something much needed considering the otherwise downcast mood of the gathering. Elsewhere, in Baltimore, the bartender noticed a newcomer arrived at his carriage out.
Oi, welcome to the Rusty Horseshoe, mate. What's your poison?
Give me the hardest thing you've got on tap, and then make it harder, said the pony, much to the bartender's surprise. However, before he could say anything, a third voice came in. Tapper, don't do it. You both and I both can tell that this guy can't handle that kind of liquor. Give him a sweet milk or something like that. There's no way he's a heavyweight like me. The stallion turned to face his opposition. Oh, you think you can handle more liquor than me, do you? I'll have you know I'm the greatest heavyweight drinking for where I come from for miles around. The seated mare narrowed her eyes. Okay. How about we just cut the insults and get right to business? She slammed 50 bits on the table. Drinking contest. Anything goes. Winner take all. Reaching to his own saddle, the stallion popped his fist. You're out. Tapper, eager to see a good old-fashioned drinking contest between the wrestling champion and the substart, took both wagers and managed to mix the drinks. Before I kick your plot and take your cash, I'd like to know your name, stranger, said the mayor. Sure, said the stallion. Name's Intellectual Pursuit. And yours. The mayor smiled as Tapper put the first of what would be many and many drinks in front of the contestants. Lightning Dust.